When I am working on a song, I want to make a little masterpiece. I don't want to just hand it in because of a deadline, and sometimes I'll lose sleep over that. Got to make the deadline, but I want to make a little masterpiece, and it's worth it for me to go above and beyond just for the extra things that it needs. It needs a better mix, or it needs one little overdub, or it's too dense. I will, to the 11th hour, try to make this thing the best I possibly can. Paul Wolff does that with audio. He really does. He's not just like, I have a circuit, it's going to work, let's make this and then send it off. And he goes deep into the philosophy and psychology of how is this going to sound? How are you and your clients going to react to this? How is this affecting the quality of your recording session? Those are Paul's concerns that go into his research that are the outcome of the designs that he makes. And that's what these MeMores are. I love the collaborative nature of music. We got there by being critical and by trying things and by failing over and over again until we encountered something where we all mutually realized its greatness. I'm David Kalmusky. I'm a record producer, guitar player, songwriter, engineer, and I am making music on Music Row in Nashville, Tennessee. Third generation musician. My grandfather was a saxophone player. My father was a bass player, engineer as well. I grew up in the music industry making music when I was a kid. I left for the road when I was 15 years old, joined a band. Since that moment, I've never stopped. I grew up a musician in bands, and that's sort of the perspective that I sort of do everything with. I try to walk in the room completely neutral the first time I'm working with somebody that I don't have a relationship with, and that's what this music business is. And sometimes you don't build a relationship with somebody and you do one session and that's it. They don't become your musical family, you don't do a pile of records over 10 years, but honestly, if you bring a sense of your realism to the table and you learn about them and it becomes a collaborative, sort of expressive environment where everybody feels sort of heard and understood, especially when there's creative ideas flowing and you're not shooting things down. I'm really good at serving an artist and a song and a production for what support it needs, psychologically as well as musically. I'm often on that side of the glass because I'm a session guitar player, so I work with a lot of other producers, and I watch other producers do that with me as well, too. It's interesting. I don't need to be coddled. I need to be challenged. Clear directive. Give me a movie scene if that's how you know how to communicate. Give me a picture or a mood. I'm good with that. It doesn't have to be musical. You don't have to write something out for me, but some other people kind of need to be left alone in their space to just come up with something and then get it approved. But this whole musical thing is really a feeling. It's not anything much more than that. And some days you're a little more numb than others and you're not in tune with it. The danger is to let things go by or overthink it. You have to understand your depth of connectivity with what's going on in the moment. And that's a zone to just be in and try to forget things. And I would describe it more like a mood. You hit a mood, you're in the zone. It's about how in tune you are with everybody else and the music. It takes a village, you know. I trust my engineers, I trust the artist, I trust the other musicians in the room. Sometimes there's songwriters in the room that have ideas and things and thoughts and feelings, and there is this happy balance of an energy where great ideas get tried and help evolve something to the point where everybody goes, okay, we got it. Nobody move. This is the track. Let's finish this. That's the song. Every piece of gear, every guitar, every instrument, everything that I have, I got from the work I did from before I had that thing. I didn't have a great microphone at one point in my career, so I did the best I could with the best microphone I could, and I recorded on it 100 times. I knew how to get a good vocal sound and better yet, a good emotional performance and a connection with the artist. I've, early in my career, mixed a couple of records on a little set of speakers and a laptop with some plug-in bundles, and some of that stuff did okay, and it got me on a call list, and my budget went up a little bit, and I took that budget and I made the same amount of money in my pocket for ramen noodles and rent, but whatever was left over got me a better little studio, a little vibe. And it's not all just about the gear. I bought a nice area rug and a coffee table and a lava lamp in my first studio, and it made sure I had a really amazing coffee and tea collection and just made an environment. I never sacrificed the environment for the gear either. This is an experience, and the gear's for me. It's supposed to be transparent. I have more artists at the end of a record talk about the vibe of the room and the candles that I use, not the vocal chain. And the vocal chain's pretty awesome. I've collected this stuff because I love how it sounds. I'm not an analog snob. I'm not a technology snob where it's like, you don't need any of that stuff. I love sound. If something's interesting to me and it sounds amazing, I want it, and that's what I spend my time and money and ideas on, are things that inspire me sonically. So all of this stuff didn't get me the career. It didn't land me the music. It's the music landed all of this stuff that I happen to love to use now. Paul Wolff is crazy obsessed in a way that I've described. My compulsion has led me to every moment of my life, every decision I've made, my gear acquisition. I went to a garage sale one day and I bought these Gretsch clarinet filters from the 1960s that have these Piezo microphones on them. And then they have these little switches where you could turn your clarinet into the sound of an oboe or something else. I showed Paul, I go, what do you think this thing is? It's just a bunch of filters, right? And we found the schematics and we opened it up, and then we opened the unit itself up. And he had about 10 ideas about how to modify this thing. We loaded it up and listened to it and created the most bizarre sounding insert path. And in the moment, it was a mutual celebration in the same way that a band knows you got it right, that magic feeling that you have. Paul was excited about the sound coming out of the speakers and the idea, but he was the only one in the room that understood on an electronic level, from electrons passing through copper wires and circuits, what was actually happening. There is an obsession and a passion where it's like, how do you know when it's right? It's a feeling. Like Paul's got that. When we talk about EQ, he'll tell you what capacitor's doing what and what's happening in the circuit and how to block it or open it or modify it. But there's a genuine excitement, not about the circuit and not about the technical aspect of it, but he really wants to know and feel the user experience as well. We want the technology to be transparent for the creative and for the artist. We don't want them thinking about something, but if it sounds bad for whatever reason, they're gonna perform poorly. So it's really important to have products and things and ideas that are helping serve the artist. Paul, he was already neck deep in thinking about his cue system, which is the MeMores, and asking everybody. He wasn't just in a bubble on a draft. He wanted to know what everybody's favorite headphone amp was. I'm sure he made his rounds to everybody that he knows in the studios, and I'm grateful to be on that list. We went down this rabbit hole with a mixer that I have, which is an interface electronics mixer from the probably mid-70s. I said, I bought this mixer because of the headphone amp. It's like the greatest sounding headphone amp. He wanted to hear it. We put it on. He wanted to know what was in it. We looked at the schematics so he could figure out what was making it punchy and not hurt, and the transients were smooth. The emotional context of having that for artists, when I discovered that mixer, yes, I have a wonderful studio, I have a wonderful gear collection. So does every other studio on the planet. And I work with a lot of artists that have access to the best engineers, the best studios, best microphones in the world. But I had a few artists that were like, what headphones are these? I'm gonna buy a set of these. Like, they don't even know why it sounds so good. And I'm like, I think it's the headphone amp. These boxes sound amazing. And when you give an artist that experience, you don't talk about it. It's not actually even part of their process. Sadly for Wolff Audio, the artist may not even leave the session being an evangelist of what was actually great about that session, but they'll just say, I had the best vocal day of my life at the studio. We sang 4 today. I've never sung 4 today. It's because of the inspiration that is happening in the moment with their performance. For me, it's important to have an analog path as well. I'll do like an aux send off the input channel for the headphones. I'm not even going through the little bit of latency that my HDX DAW, which is probably minimal, that most studios and experiences are monitoring through. But when I'm doing a vocal day, they're right off the mic pre desk send into the analog MeMore box, there's no time delay separation. Whether it's 1 millisecond or a half a millisecond or 2.3 milliseconds, it's non-existent. And I've introduced a significant amount of DAW latency with some more like prosumer products, moving them into the delay domain of inaudible latency made them sing worse because they weren't singing as good as they're singing with an analog, well-powered headphone system in line with a real-time aux send off the input. I mean, that's pretty deep nerdery. Part of the process of all of this is to keep that all from the artist. What this is actually about is giving them the best experience and getting the best vocal performance. That last 5% from 95 to 100 is the basis of all success. The 95% is just the prerequisite. That's just the price of admission. And trying to get the first 95% is your life's work, just to be able to compete. And then if you can just get 1 or 2% above that, you're doing better than the rest of the world. And a lot of that is you have to love it, you have to be compelled for it, it has to come from a place of joy, it has to come from a place of curiosity. And it can't come from wanting something. It truly is about whatever it is we're talking about, whether it's a song or a piece of technology or a work of art. It has to come from your own compulsion and curiosity. But it is the music. It's not the status, it's not anything that comes after the music. That is just the reciprocal byproduct of being curious and compelled and making a tremendous amount of it. And then your behavior turns into this. I say that we just follow our compulsions. We're all just so compulsive with its creativity or writing or recording. It takes a compulsion to become great at a musical instrument. I'm sure Paul can't keep himself asleep in the morning because he's got too many ideas in his brain to get in and make something. And he makes stuff that's tangible, and he makes stuff that makes a difference in the recording environment, believe it or not, emotionally, not just technically.